Have you ever found yourself saying something you immediately regretted? Perhaps it was to your partner, one of your children, a colleague, or a client. In that moment, you weren't the person you wanted to be. Or perhaps you've sat down to complete an important piece of work, yet instead found yourself checking email, scrolling your phone, or doing everything except the task that mattered most. Maybe you've driven home after a long day and realized you can barely remember that journey because your mind was still replaying everything that happened at work. We've all experienced these moments. The question is why? Why is it that intelligent, capable people sometimes behave in ways they know are not serving them? Most people answer that question by saying they need more discipline, they need a better mindset. Well, neither of these answers is completely correct. The problem is much deeper. The real problem is that most of us have never learned how to regulate our nervous system. Today, I want to show you why self-regulation is the foundation of becoming mind strong, why stress changes the way your brain works, and teach you one practical process you can begin using immediately to regain control. Because becoming mind strong isn't about never experiencing stress, it's about remaining calm, clear, and purposeful when stress inevitably appears. So imagine two sales executives walking into exactly the same client meeting. Both of them have this difficult client, the same deadlines, the same financial pressure, the same personalities around or the other side of the table. But by the end of the meeting, one executive remains composed. They listen carefully, they ask thoughtful questions, they make sound decisions, whilst the other becomes impatient, interrupts their client, feels personally criticized, and leaves mentally exhausted. So, what changed? It wasn't intelligence, it wasn't experience, it wasn't the actual meeting. The difference was the state of their nervous system. One person remained regulated, the other became dysregulated. That distinction determines far more of our lives than most people realize. One of the most important concepts of modern psychology is something called the window of tolerance. Imagine there is a zone where your brain performs at its very best. Inside that zone, you think clearly, solve problems, regulate your emotions, stay patient, remain creative, communicate effectively, and make good decisions. Well, this is something psychologists call your window of tolerance. It's something I like to think of as our performance zone. So inside that window, your thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain at the very front, is fully online. Outside that window, something remarkable happens. Your survival brain begins taking over. Your nervous system starts preparing you for danger. Well, this is not a problem if you're facing a tiger, but unfortunately, your nervous system cannot always distinguish between a tiger and an angry email, between a physical threat and an argument, between genuine danger and a difficult conversation. Our nervous system simply asks one question: am I safe? If the answer is no, your body prepares for survival. Some people move into what psychologists call hyperarousal. So their heart rate increases, their breathing becomes shallow, their muscles tighten, their thoughts speed up, they become reactive, impatient, anxious, frustrated, and even angry. Others move into hypoarousal. So instead of becoming anxious, they shut down, they procrastinate, they lose motivation, they become emotionally flat, they feel exhausted, they withdraw. So, two very different responses, but the same problem. In both situations, people have moved outside their window of tolerance. And in both cases, they have lost access to their best thinking. That is why intelligent people sometimes make poor decisions under pressure. It isn't because they become less intelligent, their nervous system simply took control. So here's the important insight for you. Stress is not your enemy. Stress is just information. Your nervous system is telling you that it currently believes something requires your attention. The problem isn't feeling stress. The problem is remaining trapped inside it. So most people never notice it happening. They carry stress from one meeting into the next, then into the drive home, then into dinner, then into bed, then into the next morning. So the next day they also wake up dysregulated, and eventually this becomes their normal. But it doesn't have to. The first skill of becoming mind strong is learning to recognize when your nervous system is changing. Because if you can recognize it, you can change it. And this brings us to the very first practical tool I'd like to teach you today. It's something I call the MindStrong Quick Reset. So we use an acronym, NIRA, to describe it. So N is for notice, I is for intercept, R is for regulate, and A is for activate. So let's give it a go right now. So let's start with step one, notice. So this very first step sounds simple, but it's probably the hardest. Notice. Most people are completely disconnected from their internal state. They notice everyone else's behavior, but not their own. So let's practice noticing. So take a slow breath in through your nose. And now ask yourself 4 questions. What is happening in my body right now? Are my shoulders tight? Is my jaw clenched? Is there tension in my stomach? Now notice your breathing. Is it slow? Is it fast, deep, or shallow? Now notice your thoughts. Are they calm? Are they racing? And then finally ask yourself, what emotion am I experiencing right now? So don't notice it. Simply name the emotion you're experiencing in this very moment. Are you feeling frustrated? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling angry? Research shows that simply naming an emotion begins reducing its intensity because awareness changes the brain. You cannot regulate anything you haven't first recognized. So now let's go to step 2. Step 2 is intercept. So this is where most people fail. Stress gathers momentum and they do nothing. Interception means deliberately interrupting that momentum. Not by wishing it away, not by positive thinking, but by changing where your attention goes. Your brain cannot stay fully locked onto 2 things at once. So we deliberately deploy attention somewhere else. So here are several physical intercepts, and then later a cognitive intercept that will help you deploy your attention somewhere else. So I want you to stand up. The very first thing you can do is stomp your feet. So if you ever watched a sporting event, you may notice some athletes stomping their feet. So what they're doing is actually deploying attention somewhere else. So other things you may notice athletes doing are rubbing their thighs or slapping both thighs, rubbing their hands together, pressing their feet into the floor, or even rubbing their fingertips together. So now let's use some cognitive intercepts. So simply say out loud, I am noticing that I am feeling anxious. Or I'm noticing that I am becoming frustrated. I am noticing that my body is becoming tense. So these sentences are incredibly powerful. So notice the language. You're not saying I am anxious or I am frustrated or I'm tense. You're saying I'm noticing that I'm feeling anxious. I'm noticing that I'm becoming frustrated. I'm noticing that I'm becoming tense. So what you're doing is creating psychological distance between what you're feeling and yourself. So you are no longer the emotion, you are the observer of the emotion. So that single shift begins returning control back to you, because now you are not what you're experiencing. You are not your thoughts, you're not your emotions. You are the observer of them. Step 3 is about regulation. So once we've interrupted the stress response, the next step is to deliberately send your nervous system a message of safety. So this is an important distinction. You cannot think your way out of a stress response. You have to regulate your physiology first. Because remember, a stress response is not cognitive, it's physiological. So you need to regulate your physiology first, because only then can your thinking improve. So there are many evidence-based ways of doing this, but today I'm going to teach you 2 that we consistently use at Legend Life. The first is called the physiological sigh. And this one is probably the fastest breathing technique currently supported by neuroscience for reducing acute stress. So here's how to do it. Well, you need to take a normal breath in through your nose. And then before breathing out, you take 1 small second breath on top of the first. And then you slowly exhale through your mouth until your lungs are comfortably empty. So I'll demonstrate this for you now a couple of times, and then we'll go and do it together. So you want to breathe in. So you notice I breathe in once, and then I breathe in on top of that, and then I breathe out through my mouth. So now let's do it together. So breathe in. Breathe in a little bit more. Breathe out. Another time, breathe in. Breathe in again. Breathe out. One more time. Breathe in. Breathe out. And then as you exhale, allow your shoulders to soften a little bit, unclench your jaw. Let's do it one more time. Breathe in. Breathe in again. Breathe out. Now I want you to pay attention to how you're feeling. And notice anything that's changed. Perhaps your breathing has slowed. Perhaps your shoulders are feeling a little bit more relaxed. Perhaps even your jaw has become a little bit less clenched. And perhaps even more importantly, your thinking has become a little bit quieter. So why does this work? Well, when we're stressed, we tend to breathe quickly and shallowly in our chest area, as opposed to in our belly area through deep diaphragmatic breathing. So what happens is carbon dioxide builds up in the body, And the body interprets this as a sign that something is wrong, and the nervous system remains activated. The physiological sigh helps restore the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and slow breathing tells the brain the immediate threat has passed. So it doesn't remove the challenge, whatever we're experiencing, it changes our state, it changes our ability to meet that challenge. So now let's look at the second practice. The second practice is something we've developed called calm touch. So this combines slow breathing, and for our purposes today, it will be 4-8 breathing. So this is an inhale for a count of 4 and an extended exhale for a count of 8. And we're combining this with gentle self-soothing touch. So self-soothing touch is something we instinctively do without even realizing it. So people may rub their hands together when they're feeling nervous. So gently stroking their hands, primarily the top of their hands. They may stroke their forearms. They may stroke their upper arms. They may rub their chest, especially around the heart area. Or they may gently stroke their thighs. So when we are stressed, we may do this actually naturally. So we're actually going to incorporate what we do naturally and use it with breath as a practice. And there's good reason why these self-soothing behaviors are calming. Because our skin in the hairy parts of our body contain specialized nerve fibers. So these are called C-tactile afferents. And these nerve fibers respond particularly well to slow, gentle stroking. So imagine stroking your cat gently, or you may do the self-soothing to your child. Well, this self-soothing touch communicates with parts of the brain involved in safety, connection, and emotional regulation. And when we combine soothing touch with slow breathing, we're giving the nervous system two powerful signals of safety at the same time. So let's give this a go. So what I want you to do is start with the breathing. So as I indicated, we're going to use a count of 4. So we're going to breathe in for a count of 4. Then we're going to have an extended exhale for a count of 8. So by lengthening our exhale compared to our inhale, we trigger something called the vagus nerve. This activates our parasympathetic nervous system and calms the stress response and lets our body know we're safe. So let's get started. So breathe in through the nose for a count of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out through the nose again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now let's start with gentle stroking of the top of our forearm, firstly on one side, then the other time, and continuing the breathing. So breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's do it one more time. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. With the touch, the important thing is that we do it slow, gently, and intentionally. And then as we continue the breathing, so we can do like 6 or 7 cycles of the breathing, we want to be simply saying to ourselves, I'm safe, I'm here, I've got this. So now I want you to pay attention to how your body's feeling. So are you feeling a little bit more relaxed? Do you feel you're breathing more comfortably? Perhaps you're feeling your jaws not so clenched. Perhaps your shoulders are dropped and you're feeling a lot more relaxed. So once again, we're not pretending the problem has disappeared. We've changed our physiological state so we have the capacity to deal with the problem more effectively. And that's exactly what regulation is. It's about changing our physiological state, taking us out of fight or flight, and bringing back online our prefrontal cortex so we can effectively deal with whatever we're facing. So step 4 is activate. So most practices stop before getting to activate. So people feel calmer, then they continue doing nothing. Well, MindStrong, as you remember, is the ability to keep on performing at our best, regardless of the stress, adversity, hardship, or whatever we're facing. We're able to still continue performing. So regulation is never the destination. Regulation exists so we can return to purposeful action. So now ask yourself one question. What is the next right action? Not what do I feel like doing, not what is easiest. Instead ask, what would my calm, wise, and purposeful self choose to do next? Perhaps it's returning to the challenging conversation which triggered you in the first place. Perhaps it's writing the difficult email. Perhaps it's apologizing. Perhaps it's making the phone call you've been avoiding. Perhaps it's simply returning your attention to the task in front of you. This is why we call the final step activate. Because becoming MindStrong isn't about escaping life. It's not about escaping the challenge we're experiencing. It's not about escaping the difficult conversations. It's not hiding from what has activated or triggered us. It's about remaining capable of engaging with life regardless of what we're experiencing, capable of fully being conscious, mindful, intentional, and engaging with whatever we're experiencing as our full self. So one of the biggest mistakes people make is believing self-regulation is something they should do after they become overwhelmed. But that's a little bit like waiting until your car runs out of fuel before thinking about filling the tank. By then, you're already in trouble. The real objective is to prevent chronic dysregulation from accumulating in the first place. That is exactly why we've created something called the Legend Day. So this is not about another morning routine. It's not about a planner. It isn't a productivity system. It's a daily operating system deliberately designed to help you spend more time inside your window of tolerance. Remember, the idea with the Legend Day is that we create our legend life. So if we're dysregulated, if we're not fully functioning and utilizing our prefrontal cortex, we're not able to think about the choices, decisions, and actions we take, well, we're missing the opportunity to create a legend day. We're not able to create our best life. And we need to create our best life every day if we expect to live our best life. So with the legend day, we start with morning movement, and this prepares our nervous system for the day ahead. We make sure that we get access to morning natural light, so that we anchor our circadian rhythm and help regulate our hormones that influence energy, alertness, and sleep. The breathing we do isn't there because breathing is fashionable, it's a cool thing to do, the latest fad. It's because we're looking to regulate our nervous system. Because if we do it repeatedly, we are able to consistently bring our nervous system back to regulation. Then we feature in a midday reset, not because having a break is nice, because by midday, we've likely accumulated a bit of stress, and we're likely to have some mental fatigue, and it's likely to occur before you even notice it. So the reset or the recovery at this time isn't something we can leave until the evening if we are expecting to show up as our best self in the afternoon. Also in the evening, we've got a structured reflection period. This isn't simply so that we do journaling, and because journaling is the cool thing to do. It's intended because awareness is the foundation of behavior change. So with the Legend Day, we've created this structured day where everything has a purpose and it syncs in with our biological clock, and it utilizes our body and supports regulation. The whole foundation is there to help you remain calmer, clearer, more focused, and more capable throughout the day. So rather than adding another task to your to-do list, self-regulation becomes part of how you live. The whole structure is not you got to set aside 20 minutes to do breath work. It's not 20 minutes to do mindfulness, 30 minutes to do some meditation. The whole idea is to build it into your day such that it becomes part of how you live your life. Self-regulation is not something you do before or after getting stressed. It's something you do on an ongoing basis. You do throughout your day. You do it in a structured way. Small bites, slowly building your capacity. So we're doing little reps throughout the day, using moments throughout the day to build this self-regulation practice. So my challenge to you this week, I'd like you to practice our MindStrong quick reset. So one more time, we've got the acronym NIRA. So it's notice, intercept, regulate, activate. So use it not only when you're overwhelmed, but every time you notice tension begin to build. Remember, your body is going to signal to you when you are about to become dysregulated. And the opportunity before we get caught in a stress response is to actually intercept, to notice, and then intercept, then regulate ourselves before we even get into a stress loop. So it only takes a couple minutes, but it ensures that you're going to be regulated throughout the day. You're not going to find yourself unable to be your best self. So the goal isn't perfection. The goal is building awareness, because every repetition strengthens the neural pathways responsible for self-regulation. Eventually, this stops being something you remember to do, becomes who you are. It becomes part of your life. It's what you do by default. So when you're noticing, so you instinctively, you notice that you're becoming a little bit more tense, you activate this quick MindStrong reset, and then you dissipate the actual tension. You bring your nervous system back into a state of safety and regulation, so a parasympathetic state, and you're able to function optimally. So that's the actual goal. that you're never going to have this experience, you're never going to feel this tension. The objective is to be able to notice it, to intercept it, to be able to regulate yourself, and then be able to continue as the best version of yourself. So I genuinely believe self-regulation is one of the most important skills we can develop. Not because it makes life easier, because life will always be uncertain. People will always disappoint us. Our business or job will always be challenging. Unexpected problems will always arise. But when we learn to regulate ourselves, those circumstances stop controlling us. We remain capable of thinking clearly, choosing wisely, leading effectively, and living according to our values and our purpose instead of our emotions. And that is the true foundation of becoming mind-strong. If today's lesson resonated with you, I'd love to invite you to take the Legend Life Pledge and become a Legend Life Quester. Someone who has the intention of living their best life every day. Someone who's willing to embark on this grand quest to live their legend life and proactively create this life for themselves. So next week, we'll be holding our very first Legend Live Assembly. There's no cost, but it requires you to actually take the pledge. And then here, we'll continue exploring what it means to deliberately create a remarkable, or what we call a legendary life. And then on the 10th of August, we'll begin our very first 28-day Legend Day Challenge, where I'll teach you exactly how to build these practices into your daily life so that self-regulation becomes something you live rather than something you occasionally remember. Then on the 18th of August, we'll hold our very first MindStrong Lab. So this will be something we will be doing on the third Tuesday of every month. And here we'll deep dive into practical tools for building mental fitness and resilient performance. If you found this video valuable, please share it with someone who could benefit from it. Because the world doesn't simply need people who work harder. It needs people who can remain calm, clear, and purposeful in the moments that matter most. And that journey begins with one skill: learning to regulate yourself.